Listen and subscribe to the Table of Truth on iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, and Google Podcasts. Welcome, everybody, to Blerdlines. This is your man, Cam. With me, as always, is...
the other man, Cam, with a little partner co-host, Sage, in the building.
As well as...
Hey, this is Josh.
And always making sure that we don't get too optimistic.
On most days, the mad scientist is in this chair, but today you get the professor.
And we're back. We're going to do a nice little news roundup. A lot of things have been going on in Hollywood right now, but also some interesting topics have been kind of bubbling up as well. So we wanted to tackle them and kind of do a nice little round robin. First up, we have Variety came out with an article recently talking basically about the frequent cancellation of TV shows has changed the users, viewing habits. So nowadays, we don't know if a show is going to make it for, the full season or 6 episodes or 8 episodes or 16 or like back in the day, 24. So now because of that, everyone kind of like, sometimes they're either doing the Netflix model where they just binge all of it at once, or if it's a weekly show, they'll purposely wait a month and then they'll watch the 4 to catch up. I know I've done that a couple times. I actually just recently did that with Picard. But because they're doing that, now it's messing up with all these shows' streaming numbers, which actually adds to the cancellation. And that just makes it a catch-22 because it's like, okay, I don't want the show to leave, but then I don't know if I want to commit weekly. So then we have this thing where I don't want my show to get canceled, but I don't want to sit there and watch it every week.
Yeah, it is a really weird place for the audience and to be right now. But I guess that's because of all the platforms, the a la carte, so many TV everywhere as well. So yeah, that's a good point. But also, it highlights how slow to react television networks and streamers are. Because I mean, if you see if you see that the audience is doing that, then you have to, the logic at least dictates or suggests very strongly that you leave the show on and let it percolate for a little while, percolate for a little while. Because taking like now if those are the viewing habits of people who stream, then it to me that dictates you got to leave it up for a little while. You got to be willing to take a little bit of a loss on eyeballs if like Cam was saying, he to my utter horror waited 4 episodes before he started watching Picard. I don't view like that. If you throw it all up, I'll knock it down as quickly as I can. If you throw it up weekly, I don't wait. I'll watch. If it's good, I'll watch it weekly. And the mark of it not being good for me, I am the opposite of that metric. So if like for me, if it's good, I will be on top of it the day it drops. If it's not that great or bad, I will struggle to remember to watch it and end up 2 behind, 3 behind, 4 behind really easy. So, but again, I don't think television networks and streamers are responding or reacting in any kind of logical way to these things. Like that, the numbers to me dictate what you should and should not do.
Let me chime in. Sorry. So for me personally, I think networks have to adapt at the way consumers take in how they watch a series. I don't necessarily equate a bad series to me watching it in a binge fashion or not keeping up with weekly. There's a lot of shows and it's a lot of things that I have to like consume and I'm like, I don't have time for. So with that said, like The Last of Us, partly why I wasn't watching it weekly is because I kind of knew what happened, but I was still tapped in. Maybe certain shows are really that good and I just don't have the time to get into it. But then there's other shows that like maybe like Willow, like I was interested. I watched 1 episode and I just didn't get into it. And I was like, eventually I want to watch it because I want to see how it plays out. Like I'm genuinely curious because I did watch the original, but like also the way platforms are catering to us. If you put it out and binge it and it's good, I might just binge it, or I might just do the opposite and kind of take my time with it because I want to savor the show. You know what I'm saying? And then if it is coming out weekly, like Mando, when it first came out, I was like, man, I can't wait till the next week. So sometimes I'll let it go up in some episodes so I can watch like 5 in a row, so I don't feel like I gotta wait for the next week. So it's a case by case basis.
Yeah, I think that's kind of the big thing. But to you guys' point, it's more of an adaptation because, you know, all of viewing habits are jumbled up and mixed in with different reasons for doing things. I also didn't watch Picard until about 5 episodes in, but that's because you fool me once, shame on how that thing goes. So I'm weary of that when I approach certain things, especially if it's going into its 3rd season. Do I invest, because there is a lot of things in there you want to make a choice of where you put in your time because of all the other factors you talked about, having to deal to family time and work and things like that, and you just don't have time to keep up. But I think what's probably going to have to happen is just the system itself is once again going to have to evolve, just like it evolved from just primarily basing these decisions on the Nielsen ratings to factoring in Twitter and things trending and stuff. I would say that stuff like Scandal and Breaking Bad and Game of Thrones could be cited as, and The Walking Dead can be cited as sort of examples of how during that period of television history, the way that the way that networks were judging the success rate of a show was coming from at least 2 or 3 different sources, and not just based on the immediate returns of who's sitting in front of the TV. And I guess now in the more immediate case is who's got a screen in front of them, whether that be a computer or a tablet or whatever, and when they have it. But I think that most shows probably have to go on all of that stuff before they're canceled. And then let me just say one more thing. I think a lot of this is being driven by the recent activities of Warner Bros. Discovery and a lot of their networks and the cancellation of movies and TV series and things like that because of the structuring of their business. But all of that to say is who knows where it's going to end up. But it's just, I think the audience is a little bit more, it's too I won't say smarter. I won't use that term. I would say
never that.
Learn has adapted to this new wave of it has adapted to this world of TV everywhere and a la carte presentation where you can curate your viewing style the way you want to, the way you think is best for your schedule and your life. And what's happening is we're seeing a clash of that intersection where that doesn't work for the TV networks because they need to know right then and there where they should continue to put their money, their marketing dollars, their production dollars, all this stuff. And it doesn't work well for the audience because they have been burned multiple times with stories where they stuck with it and then boom, it gets canceled in the middle of season 2, or like right now and even though nobody's mourning this, but Titans doesn't have on its schedule a return date for a second half of its 4th season, which is now we find out is its final season. So
criminal, I tell you.
It's probably going to be a perpetual hiatus, which again, nobody's mourning. Yeah. But at the same time, there might be some people out there that would have at least liked to see that investment in time, which is what it comes down to, at least satisfied a little bit, mitigated a little bit by seeing an episode or a final moment or whatever.
And also what happens now is, so you have things like Netflix is a great example where, a second season will debut and then, they'll drop their 13 episodes and then the next day be like, this show's canceled.
Exactly.
So then you have no, again, before we at least get those 13 episodes over 13 weeks, you're growing with it, you're building with it, blah, blah, blah. It ends, you find out, whether maybe by episode 3 or maybe by episode 6, or it might actually reach to the end. And then, they would burn off the episodes during the summertime or something. But now,
sorry.
But now they don't have that anymore. I was going to say my example is Warrior Nun, which just came back, I think, this year.
Right.
And like, again, I was laughing because I watched the first season. It was like, I didn't really think about it. Since the second season kind of came and went for me. But then when I was looking at some of the cancellations, I saw it. And then I started to see more of the social chatter like, oh no, save Warrior Nun. I'm like, word, y'all be watching this?
people did watch Warrior Nun. It was one of the most watched. It was one of the most watched shows of the year that it dropped.
Let me ask you guys this: where does the responsibility fall for shows, good shows, quality shows continue? Is it the responsibility of the viewer or the networks adapting to how the viewer watches?
I think it's on the network. Yeah, I think it's on the network.
It's the latter. It's definitely the latter.
Yeah, they need to let shows cook, man. I think that's my one thing that I don't like anymore. That's like they don't allow. I mean, I know it's expensive in this aspect of it, but like you basically get, for a lot of these shows, they get damn near maybe 6 episodes to see if they can do something. Maybe 3 at times. It's like,
and we also have to distinguish canceling a show after 4 seasons with no conclusion versus canceling a show after a few episodes or 1 season where it limped along or whatever. There's so many factors. Another part of the viewing experience is the fact that, when binge culture took over and became a thing, there was a significant portion of the viewing audience left behind, which is the appointment viewing audience, who likes that engagement of every week at this point in time as almost like a community thing. We're going to be watching this show and then we're going to have conversation about it. But I can't do that if you're 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 episodes ahead of me. Now the fun of that is gone. And again, all of these things sort of began to, they take shape after the fact, right? After binging has become popular, and it was fun with Breaking Bad when you were trying to catch up. But then after so many shows have taken on that model, there's a good significant chunk of the audience that's like, no, we don't want that, which is why you see now with Prime and Disney Plus, they release their shows weekly now. I mean, almost everybody does it now because, again, now you can have it to binge when you want to because it's always going to be there, or you can watch as an appointment because we're releasing it weekly instead of dropping a whole sack of episodes in your lap and saying, hey, watch however you want.
Yeah, well, the thing too, I kind of understand both sides of the coin, is that you have shows that allows you the conversation after you watch the show, like The Wire or Game of Thrones, where the phenomenon was not only watching the show, but having the discussion about the show with friends and coworkers or whatnot. And I thought that was a part of I don't use culture as a lack of a better term, but like that was cool. Like I couldn't wait to go talk about that episode with my friends, right? But then you got on the flip side of it, like, hey, I just want to binge on my time, watch it, and not have to wait. Because I watch anime and I hate when I gotta wait. It was a fire episode or it left me on the cliffhanger. I gotta wait a whole week for this. Like, oh, come on, you're killing me. So in order to satisfy my quote unquote thirst for this show, I'll be patient, wait like a month, get 4 episodes in, boom, I watch it, and then I'm like, all right, cool, that was cool. That's just my own personal way of doing things, whether it be time constraints or the satisfaction of not wanting to wait episode week by week. Now we're probably the last of an era where we used to watch things as it came out week by week,
Oh, certainly. We're definitely the last of that generation.
So now the narrative and the way we view has changed, where you got people on both sides. So, and if you like people, like, even if you're in a household, people watch shows on different times. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes I watch my shows at like quote unquote work while I'm working. I'm like, all right, because I can get the most done. When I get home, I don't have time to watch that. So it's like we're on different schedules. So now people, if you're busy, you have to plan, like sitting there like, okay, I don't have to sit and be confined by the time it used to be. So TGIF, I had to be home at a certain time to watch all these shows. Now I'm like, nah, I can watch it on Saturday at my time, which is convenient, a la carte, which is cool. But I understand both sides of the coin. So it's just, I don't know if there's
a paradox. I mean, that's what we're left with. And it's not something that, even though we said almost all of us that it's up to the networks to respond, but at the same time, with that in mind, and there's that being such a mixed bag, it was easier to respond 20, 30 years ago because it was clear, even though Nielsen wasn't like in every household, so you're getting a percentage, a portion of what the show success looks like, but it was enough of a metric to get it right half the time, most of the time, if you will.
And I think that's a key component because the Disneys of the world, Netflix is a whole other ball of wax, but the Disney Pluses of the world, the Hulus of the world, the Amazons of the world, they don't operate by the same rules as a network would. So they can afford to leave something dangling out there for a month to see how it goes before they decide what the next move is going to be.
Yep.
I think also to double back to something that that Cam mentioned a second ago, you also have to factor in whether or not that thing is a phenomenon. You know what I mean? Like a Game of Thrones or, something on that has such outsized success that it hits every metric. It hits people who are watching it 3-4 episodes down the line. It has weekly watchers, Mando being another one. Mandalorian probably hits on, but without even looking at the numbers, I'm pretty confident in saying that it's such an outsized hit that it hits all the metrics. And so it defies, and I bet you that's the metric that networks are looking at, the outsized hit versus the day-to-day average, middle of the road show.
Does it defy conventionalism, as you pointed out? Is it defying that conventionalism? Because at this point, networks versus streamers have to be more careful and cautious in what they're taking in and what they're keeping going.
Yeah, and I think also too, you think about like going back to like the must-see TV. Like there's very little shows now that are like that. Game of Thrones was one of the big ones. Walking Dead at its peak, 100% one of the big ones. Breaking Bad too is one of those too. But right nowadays, shows can drop. If it's not on regular network television, they could drop. All 8 episodes, and then we forget about it, and they're like, "Oh yeah, it's no, let me go check that out." And then it's such a weird metrics of if a TV show drops on Friday, like Luther just dropped 2 weeks ago, and they had a good push ahead of time, good promo push, saw it all up in Times Square, saw a lot of trailers, that kind of stuff, and I think it's 8 episodes, 8 to 13, something like that. It's probably 8.
I will say this too before you finish. I love the BC model of how they show episodes. It's like an hour and a half.
Yep.
It's not a lot of episodes per season, but I feel satisfied after watching like 4 episodes. I feel like I watched.
They were sacred, but they started to do more business with American TV. And it went no, not all of it. It's still very sacred. The BBC shows are still great, but Black Mirror, for example, it was very tightly done. 1 episode per series or see 2 or 3. Now, and now I think they
serialize that.
Only do few, but they're just like churning them out, I guess not frequently anymore, but they were doing a lot more seasons than they normally do, where you used to see 1, 2 and done, like with The Office or with the British version of House of Cards or or Shameless or what was the one you just said, Josh?
Sherlock.
Yes, that's a great example. Yes.
Sherlock be like 3 episodes every 3 years, and we'd be like, cool.
Yeah, B.
I'm like, hey, take your time.
Yeah, I have no issues with that.
When Cumberbatch has got a chunk of time, wants to do Sherlock, I am all about it. Like, yo,
that is literally what is happening right now. The showrunner, not Russell T Davies. I forget the showrunner's name, but he's basically like, I really would like to do more. I'm waiting on Benedict Cumberbatch. That's kind of it.
But I think, and honestly, I remember because I didn't know this before. Because before we used to get 24 episodes of shows, right? 24 to 27. That writer strike happened around the Heroes era, whatever.
2008.
2008.
Hey, the writer strike happened was Glory Boy days, Cam.
Yep.
The single longest stretch of unemployment of my entire television career.
That was insane. But to be fair, network TV shows, so like the big so Fox, CW, NBC, ABC, those shows their shows typically ran 22 to 24 episodes a season. The broadcast cable were more like 16 episodes, like the AMC's, USA's. And then the premium were always like HBO and Showtime always generally stuck to 8 to 13 episodes.
I remember once the writer's strike kind of ended, then I started to see the more shows would do 12 to 13 issue episode arcs now, because they're like, we don't even know if we're going to make it past 13. So let's have a narrative that can at least be from this to this. And if we get, okay, cool, now we have 2. And then they started to split things up. Because we used to, when we started Table of Truth, we did 24 episodes because of 24. It's 24 episodes, make it happen, But nowadays you couldn't do 20. And 24 came back in this new paradigm of how TV's made. And it was like, I think it was like 16 episodes for one of it. And I think the other one was, the one with Dre was like 18 or something like that.
Yeah.
But you're right, though. I think and it's funny because in Europe, or I say the UK, they would American shows, but they would do it by chunks. And so, like, if you were going to get, Friends is 24 episodes, they would get that split up in almost like 4 different DVD box sets. So it's like a chunk of episodes. And then now that we've kind of adopted that, which honestly is probably better. Sometimes shows don't need to be 24 episodes anymore. It's a lot of filler.
Really.
It's just a lot of filler.
It's just filler. A lot of it is more so just trying to. It's really an advertisement thing with network shows. That's why they got so many episodes.
Yeah, but that's the one thing I would say. I do like that the 12 to 13 episode arc and stuff. But I think you're right. It gets to a point now where the investment is the time investment. Again, my friend, he has twin daughters. They're both 2, I think, now. And so he's like, I watch when I can. It might be at work, or it might be like my little space that I got to kind of like peel away an hour to check out whatever show. So he has no like set. He's like, I don't have a set like watching of television time. It's usually when they go to bed, so that's my nighttime, or maybe early in the morning or something. So it's like I still 30 minutes and hours here and there. I don't have like a set time. Like, oh man, this is my show. I got to make sure I show up at this time. Like that's almost impossible for him at the point now.
Yeah, and I think modifying what we were saying earlier about the networks and streamers responding to the audience, I think that might be the wrong suggestion as much as they should be responding to technology. Because think about what we've said here, all the things that we've said about in terms of being able to watch TV and things anywhere, that's stuff that has developed only in the last 10 years, in which only capable of doing that vis-a-vis advances in technology and in the internet and the capability of streaming and all that stuff has come a long way. And probably has gotten gets a little bit far ahead of how content creation can respond and distribution can respond. So I think that's a big deal too, is now there was probably too much of a resistance in accepting social media's role. And we work in the industry, so we know that resistance was there. But now it's a thing, and it's a thing that has blossomed and plateaued to the point where you cannot separate it from the industry. So
Yeah.
I'm curious. I'm curious now. Do you think that it's networks and streamers' response to technology and not to the response of the people? So in other words, you're saying that people are responding to the availability, what technology avails them to be able to do?
Oh, absolutely. They always, when have they not? When have we not done that? You know what I mean? Like when it's always been the case. And then it's a little bit of the other thing too. You know, it's not just one thing. It's a many, it's all of it. But I do think there is a slowness to respond and accept that, okay, this is where technology is taking us. You know what I mean? Like this is
definitely. And that's classic. That's classic television network, though. They're usually old people who run these things, and not to engage in ageism, but it's very old thinking. They are inured and really just like, it's like to get them to think differently is just one of the most amazingly difficult things to do, just from top to bottom, really. But I mean, it's a different medium. The medium has shown you that with the different things that, I was prepared to disagree with you a second ago, but actually, it took a second to listen to you. No, I took a second to listen to you and think it through. And you're right. They're not responding to the things that to what the technology, as I was sort of questioning you before, they're not responding to what technology avails people to do. And if you look at it from that when you think about it, that's the root of it all. It's not the people, it's not the end user, it's what the medium avails the end user to do. Yeah. And if you look at it from that standpoint, it makes total sense. Like, you have to adjust. You have to, and these people, so to my point, or to my earlier point, these people have never really been quick. Entertainment in general has never been quick to adjust. Once MP3s became the thing, they fought that joint tooth and nail before they eventually realized, hey, the market has changed. We need to change with it.
Yeah, it's not a trend as we believe that it would be. It's actually something.
Yeah, and I think similarly they responded to in the early days. I remember I watched this very closely before the writer's strike. They fought tooth and nail. Like people were doing the same thing that they were doing with MP3s. People were recording and then posting it online, and then you could BitTorrent it. You could watch it on illegal site number 12 of whatever the illegal site of the day was, and it was starting to eat into appointment television, like you were saying. And at the point where you realize that that's the case, rather than adopt new technology, rather than be an early adopter and be the one, there's this thing where they don't want to be the first one to do it because they're afraid that the first one to do it is going to be the one to fail. And then someone else will come behind them and capitalize on their loss
and make good on my say. And you got it. And there's a legitimacy to that, right? If you're a person whose job is to make the decision and it's you, the buck stops with you. But, I think you can even look at the music industry, for example, as having fought very hard against, as you say, MP3s and the BitTorrent and the downloading of music and that where that was going. And eventually they had to yield. And the same thing is going on with network TV versus premium and all these things. Because if you think about it, streaming services like Amazon and Netflix are tech companies, right? Mm-hmm. Apple, like these are tech companies. So they're already co-opting the network apparatus into their tech. So it's again
It's wild, man.
That's what it is.
I mean, I think that's kind of the reason why, like, we have a impending writer strike coming up. It's not official yet. They're in negotiations. The contract ends by the end of the month. It's always in this situation. As long as they get their shit together within a month, it doesn't upset too much people's pay.
Not gonna happen.
And you gotta be
not gonna happen. There will be a writer's strike.
The new tech and where we are is going to impact that, because now it's not just your writing is not just being seen on one screen. It's across multimedia, true multimedia.
And I think. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, I was done.
And that's what happened with the last writer's strike. The writer's strike in 2008 was exclusively predicated on the idea that, hey, I'm supposed to be getting paid as a writer off of any medium that you syndicate my work on. Here you are syndicating my work 24 hours later, and I'm not getting paid off it. And the residuals is how, you get paid upfront for your, for whatever you've written. But you also, the real money in syndication comes the real money in writing comes from syndication. If your joint ends up becoming a Seinfeld or Friends that's on for like 12 hours a day on any given network, you have a sizable chunk of money to be that's sitting out there to be made. Here's my show on these streaming platforms, and I don't get the same. I guarantee you, part of it is part of this writer's strike that could happen later on down the line is going to be predicated on the crappy deal that they signed up for in 2008. Because writers I'm sure they want parity. They will listen. You have X amount of subscribers for this now paid service that you're offering in a lot of instances,
Bingo.
And I am not getting the same dough that I'm getting if my show is on network television or cable.
Yep. I just looked it up too. And so it said the WGA at the time for 2008, the WGA had no arrangement with producers regarding the use of content online, and 2 models of internet distribution were negotiated. And this is this is 2008, right? So that's just, what is that? iTunes Store, Amazon Video at the time. And streaming had just became a thing. So that's kind of crazy.
Was just moving from they were doing the DVDs, and you can do the streaming, but they didn't have as much content on the streaming. And again, what is that? That is tech changing the game. And that's where we are right now.
Crazy. And I think that's the most interesting too, because you're right. If I'm writing a TV show, I write, may I write a pilot or something like that. I get paid for writing the actual pilot, but then now that pilot goes on to say it's on CBS, boom, it's on TV for viewers to see. Then it's on what's that, Paramount Plus or whatever now. I can't remember. They all built together. Then on top of that, I can buy it on iTunes. I can also buy it on Amazon. and then later on, it might even be syndicated on Tubi or freaking whatever. That's 5 different places already just from that one episode.
And then also you got to think about the writers leave some stuff on the table for the networks. Like they're not probably, I don't know, I have to look this up, but I would imagine they're not getting a lot of on merchandising and things like that for creating the characters, because the network owns the characters, unless it's like a situation like George R. R. Martin, who owns the characters of his story, or Stephen King or something like that. But if it's a Mandalorian and you're writing for Mandalorian, when Baby Yoda sells, you're not getting anything. That's all going to Disney and to so that's going to be a factor.
Yeah,
because if you're creating original characters and then they're taking those characters and they're making other products, toys and things like that, you're going to want some residuals.
Yeah, and that goes back to the craziness, because I remember even when I was working at Marvel, and I think it was Luke Cage had debuted, and I was in a meeting and they were asking about the numbers, and Netflix was like, "Oh, it did good."
That's a whole other.
So like,
that's
let me get
a
some
whole other-
numbers. It was interesting to me because I was like, oh man, we're in a new realm now. Because when we were at BET, we would get a print out of all the numbers for Nielsen, and it would show all the shows that were from BET plus the ones that came up the same slot, broken down by demographic and all that. So
and
every
then we
week
have a Monday morning meeting to go over all of those numbers and what they represent and adjustments that need to be made.
Yep,
Yeah.
totally. And then now streaming, it's magic.
But I mean,
it's a new frontier.
The kicker there is also, it's networks wanting to have their cake and eat it too. Like, we're gonna put our show on the streaming network, and it was free before, but now we're gonna charge for it. But the old deal in 2008.
Right, and we're not even talking about advertisement dollars because now the
that's a whole other ball of wax.
It's there's so many layers to this conversation, and I think that's why going back to the Variety article and kind of looking at it, it just comes back to being a one massive paradox. But when we talk about it and we talk through it, we see that it's a lack of a genuine response to the changes in tech and not on time. Like they come too late. And then by the time the audience is just riding a wave, the audience is just riding a wave, whether it be the wave of a successful TV show or the wave of social media. MySpace was a thing until it wasn't. Until Facebook supplanted it. That's just how these things work. They're not normal. They're they are trends, but not in that sort of fleeting way that we think of a trend. Like they're more enduring than fashion trends, but they become something else because the tech is continuing to build upon what came before it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, it's totally true. Tech is, again, as the startups say, they disrupt. They be disrupted. But I think
they are the best.
And I'm curious to see now we have, almost every major network now has their premium channel. Pay your X amount of bucks a month, and now a lot of them are now starting to have their free channel. Where now we've introduced ads back in. So now you got your freebie, Tubi, Pluto's coming in, and all these ones are now operating just like regular old network television. And so then they're having a bunch of stuff now. So now we have more things to even talk about now, because you're right. If, again, D'Angelo, if you wrote a pilot for something or a couple episodes, your stuff has multiple different places it could be at. So now I would assume the points would change now from the residual standpoint, because not only are you getting paid to write the episode, but now that episode is going to be sewn and literally could be almost like 12 different things.
You assume, but that's the thing that is precisely what the current writers WGA writers negotiation is about.
Yeah, exactly.
They're just going to give it.
Yeah, exactly. Now, so speaking more on the change-ups and stuff, our former employer, BET, by way of Viacom, is now being up for sale. This came up about a month ago, and it just happened recently. It happened about the last couple of weeks, and it's very interesting the amount of different players they're all trying to throw in their hat in to acquire the network. And all these players are all major people. Tyler Perry already has a minority stake in BET. And BET comes with BET Plus, VH1, and I think something else. I think BET Productions or something like that. They're a production company.
BET.
And so, actually, I looked that up. I think, is it still around, or did they sunset it? Because I didn't see it on the list of one of the properties.
I was being sarcastic. I believe it's been sunset.
Just making sure, represent for the ladies. But also, besides Tyler Perry, you have Diddy, who already owns Revolt, which is basically BET from 1990. And then with the Better Podcast Network, I'll give them that. Their podcast network is actually super dope. Shout out to Aki out there running that. And then you have Byron Allen, who's been just gobbling up random ass television, everything, whether it's like local affiliates, Weather Channel, some other randomness. And it's funny because he was like what, comedian turned mogul? Is that where he came from? And like
comedian turned show host turned turned mogul.
Yep.
Probably a savvy businessman all along the way, and just
for real
about it.
Yeah.
When you real quick aside, when you listen to him talk about the acquisition of his first network, like it was touch and go, and like, you know, like a lot of nail biting. Like it was serious. Like he really didn't know how he was going to do it. He didn't know if he had enough dough. Like it was, you know, I mean, this is well off to sort of approaching rich people problems. But when you listen to his story, like, it is very interesting. Like it really almost didn't happen on a number of fronts, and the man sort of just put in the work and wound up copping the network, and then the dough from that network facilitated the purchase of another one and another one and another one. So yeah, it's interesting. But I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, Cam.
No, and so I think that's the part that's most interesting. And then the last player recently has been Group Black, which is a Black VC fund out of Atlanta, I believe. And they invest in a bunch of Black startups, and other media companies. They've been kind of doing on the VC front. They've been making a lot of noise, and they're starting to percolate into the public. The question I would say to you guys: is it even worth it to buy BET at this point?
Man, this is Black capitalism at its finest. Because that's what
I asked. That's why I think is it worth it? Is it worth it?
What does this actually mean for us? Because it's ultimately nothing that's going to impact us. And
well, from a zeitgeist perspective, I think, you know, from a cultural impact perspective, I think it has a little bit of weight, especially if you revamp it.
That's true. That's definitely true. So, I mean, BET, they were smart by going into business with Tyler Perry, because their biggest thing was they didn't have original content, and a lot of their stuff was always produced from someone else. They didn't own anything, and so it was hard for them.
Literally their entire.
They licensed everything, and Tyler Perry, you know, we all know that fool be just churning out content whether we like it or not. So marrying those two together actually worked well for BET, and actually BET in the last 1 or 2 years has actually been doing better because they have this steady stream of shitty content specifically for older Black women.
Stop it.
Well, there is the argument that it does become Black owned again, and from some information I just found out, Bob Jelson sold it in 2003. But again, like I asked the question, like they own it. What does it do for us, the consumer? Like, because I don't know if, they own it. It's Black owned, it's optics and stuff. But again, Tyler Perry is very protective of his stuff. I don't know if he includes people in doing his, like helping him with his work. So it's just his vision. It's not a for us, by us type of thing. So again, like I said, this is the whole capitalistic. They just doing this for themselves, not for us.
Yes. I would say that aspect of it, because even, you know, Bob Johnson's, when he sold it, he had a clause in it where like BET couldn't be the Black MTV. So it let it be independent for about 10 years, for better or for worse. I'm not going to say mostly worse, but whatever. But for those 10 years, BET had the autonomy to kind of operate how it wanted. So they were pretty much how it is. So there was no evil white person behind them pulling the strings or anything like that. Around 2013, 2014, that's when things started to merge with Viacom. They started to take care of their redundancies and all that. The one thing we did notice is like that those budgets kind of stayed the same though. So I think it'll be interesting, because I think if you're a hyper Black capitalist, you buy BET, you could revamp it, and you could make your money, section it off for the culture, section it off to make sure you make a bunch of money. Or it could just kind of like what you said, it's just something that is almost like if Diddy bought it and merged it with like Revolt or something like that. That's literally he's one of the great like examples of just like performative Black capitalism, where it's like, hey, I'm doing this for the people, but I'm really doing it for myself.
Of course. Yeah. I mean, there's always that aspect. To answer that question directly, I mean, at the end of the day, if you're operating at that level, if you're operating at any level, honestly, you don't go to work because you like the people there and like, you know, they're nice and the coffee's good. Like you go primarily because you get paid for it. You know, and so to sort of to expand that further, like if you have the means and you have, a vision for what it could turn into, yeah, you go ahead and put your hat in the ring to see if you can purchase something like a BET. I mean, yes, you're going to make money, but also you have an opportunity to make an impact potentially, depending on the individual we're talking about, or the entity that purchases it, depending on who we're talking about. There's either, maintaining the status quo or like, there's an opportunity to really do something here that's bigger and more impactful than just, I'm going to make a ton of money, because I bought this network. Whether or not that's going to be the case, I mean, that remains to be seen. I kind of like Byron Allen. Like every time he's interviewed somewhere, he talks an equal portion of like, look, on the one hand, this thing needs to make money. On the other hand, there's an opportunity to make something bigger and better than what it was. And that seems to be his focus and his way of doing things whenever you hear him talk, which I kind of admire. A lot of black people in business talk a good game. And then, when it's time for the rubber to meet the road, they're really just all about that money, which is cool. Great. Hey, listen, who's to say if I went into business on that scale that I wouldn't be the same person? So I'm not necessarily knocking that. However, I think like I said, I think there's an opportunity to do something. And I think if it were left to me to be like, all right, you got to pick whose bid you're going to accept for BET, I would go with Byron Allen in a heartbeat. That's just me. I don't know what that VC company would do. They might just hoe out, BET on a whole other level than it is currently. And, it could, as much as people complain about BET, it could end up being in worse shape than it, the worst being relative. The Tyler Perry shows, like we said, those are highly rated, so they're not doing bad. But, from a standpoint of, how you want to see yourself on screen and the types of shows that you want to see, there are people who have their complaints, and that could be doubled down on if depending on whose bid gets accepted. So, in a perfect world, I would want to see someone who's going to broaden the spectrum of things that you see on BET. But, at the end of the day, it has to be financially solvent first. And the person who or entity that makes that purchase has to have A, network television experience, B, business sense, and C, people around him who will also make good decisions further down that chain. And again, the person that pops into my head as that guy is Byron Allen.
So I'm going to be the mouth of Sauron right here, for lack of a better term. You said opportunity, and it was brought to my attention. BT's probably never taken advantage of the diverse voices of the black people. So, yeah, there is that opportunity now because the optics of a lot of black people, or a few prominent black people that have the means, could do some change. So we'll see. It's also brought to my attention that bad is relative in this case because of the broadcast cable experience. And it's always been a hip hop and gospel conduit. For us,
I would say that's the thing that's why it would be interesting, because I think from a modern time right now, I would say Revolt's been doing a little bit better because they've expanded from just being like MTV essentially, and then started to actually expand to other aspects of it. So them picking up Drink Champs, for example, or syndicating Breakfast Club from their video aspect of it, and then expanding that into a podcast. Those are those moves that are a little bit more modern now, that are actually really smart. Something that BET hasn't really gotten to that aspect of it yet. However, going back to what they don't really have like broadcast cable experience. Like they're there, but they're like, they're in certain markets, but they're not everywhere. So I think, to Josh's point, I think Byron Allen could help in that aspect of it, because he's already has X amount of affiliate stations already. So you have a little bit of a network of like, okay. And I just double checked Byron Allen, because like and those stations, they're like all over the country. Like I think they're in like 30 or 40 states, not at 50 yet. But he definitely starting to build a network and another thing. So I think that's the interesting part. But I also believe, like, I agree. It's one of the things that we worked at BET was the one thing that they, there's many things they did wrong, but one of the things that they overlooked was that aspect of presenting diverse Black voices. Because they usually cater to a very specific demographic. And I've seen those numbers. I know why they do it. And that demographic usually is Southern Black women in their 40s, college educated, almost upper middle class-ish kind of realm. And they've made content over the last 10 years to kind of cater to that. And then the parts that gives them the hiccups are like BET Awards, Hip Hop Awards, like those, the non-gospel stuff. Because they got their gospel stuff. That's a solid money. Then then they got all the quote unquote young things, BET Awards, Hip Hop Awards, that kind of stuff, Soul Train Awards. And then they got the for the culture, like Black Rock, those types of things. So it's like they have the pieces there. It's just that someone can actually fit them in a place that's amenable for everybody. Because I think that's the one thing that they haven't really figured out. And unless someone and I think if Tyler Perry takes over, it's going to be the Tyler Perry network. If Diddy takes over, he might merge it with Revolt, which on one end could be a good thing, but at the same time, are you going to kill a legacy brand like BET and just name everything Revolt? And I don't think that's a good look. So I think Byron Allen might be the better situation. The X factor is the Black VC fund, which you don't know what they would do. They just been kind of doing that. But yeah, I would say, but yeah, it could be interesting. It could be interesting.
At the end of the day, these heads see an opportunity because more than likely, as with any social media platform or anything that's culture driven, Black people are at the forefront. We make things hype. We get things popping, and we don't, in this capitalistic society, we don't take advantage of what we create in an event. Yes. Case in point, Clubhouse. We got it popping on there, right? And somebody took that idea and pushed it forward and capitalized on it. So what these prominent African-American men are taking advantage of, what they're taking advantage of is that the fact that Black people are movers and shakers when it comes to stuff like this in society. And maybe they have a genuine outlook of taking advantage of it, taking back ownership of what the culture represents. And it just got brought to my attention that, BET has 30 plus years of content library that can be monetized. So, so that's just something to look at.
It's a lot. And I think that's the one thing, if I was looking at this from that kind of a situation, because the one big revelation when I first worked there was that the amount of stuff that BET has over the last 30 years is crazy. The part that messed them up is there's a lot of licensing that's got to happen. So if you're buying BET,
I was saying, they have a crazy catalog, but a lot of it is licensable, is licensed license oriented. It's not original content.
Let me ask you this.
That's the big one. That's the big one.
This is something kind of off, but in the same sense. Def Comedy Jam, does the Rapist still on that, or who owns that stuff?
That's all Russell Simmons.
Does he have his own network?
Nope. That's why it's not. That's why it's not streaming anywhere. It's not streaming anywhere. That's like it's on them. They have the rights, have all that stuff. A quick story for BET is when I first got to the BET, one of the first things I asked was like, "Yo, what's up with Rap City? Like, there's like freestyles, this and that." And so what I learned was, because if they were going to show old episodes of Rap City today, they would have to go back and license the music that was played by the DJ through the episode. So now the music videos is a one license, whatever. But if and the DJ, when they were doing those freestyle, all those freestyles in there, it wasn't like original beats or something like that. It was all instrumentals and all that stuff, which is of course dope. But if they wanted to go in, if it's a obscure thing, of course it probably wouldn't be that much. But if it's something hype or something that was like super popular or number one hit, that's going to be even more dope. So for them to actually license every episode, they would have probably multiple licenses of music and have to go through and figure out, let's get a chunk from WB, let's get a chunk from this and that. And so that's part of the reason why BET never brought a lot of those things out. Because I remember when we did an Aaliyah tribute thing, they had to pull an episode from 1 and 6 in Park, but I forgot there was like a licensing problem with one of the songs that was played when she walked in, and I think it was around the time it was one of her songs, but her songs have been wrapped up in a legal situation that's why it was never streaming, so they couldn't use it. And so it was just an eye-opening thing to me, because I'm like, BET does have all this content, but in reality they kind of don't, because they don't own it lock, stock, and barrel, and that's part of the reason why they don't show old the BET Awards and all those other ones. Those award shows are owned by the production company that puts the show on. So BET just airs it as a broadcasting situation, but they don't actually own the actual stuff, and that's the crazy thing. So I think that's
sort of
go ahead,
circle around to the Rap City thing. The first time they aired it, licensing agreements were one way, and royalty setups were one way for television. There's been like 25 agreements, 25 different licensing agreements and different situations now, where you could have played that stuff and not owed X amount of money. But now when you replay it, because licensing laws and rules are different, you have to pay a lot more money in most instances, because, let's say you had to pay $1 before, you might have to pay $25 now. Extrapolate that across however many episodes of Rap City, and I'm just throwing out numbers, it's probably way more than that now. They're talking in the thousands of dollars per song. So, and then, per song, then the different regions that you play it in, then how many times you play it per, it's a whole thing. It's not just a matter of, it's not just the licensing agreements. It's honoring the changes that have occurred since Rap City was on the air.
Yeah, that's the crazy part. But I think you're right, Cam. It's one of those things where it's just an interesting black capitalist moment, because it's, all the big black capitalists is like, okay, cool. I can get a legacy brand probably on the cheap. And now what am I going to do with it? Exactly like you said. Cause it's like, I remember that was another thing too, where we're like, there's what happened to BET News, and nobody watched it. So they canceled it, but you probably should still have it just off of GP, because you should just have it.
Sure.
And take that out.
I just got a wary eye at all this. I mean, for obvious reasons, but let's see what happens. So
yeah, no, definitely. And then our last piece of news, unfortunately, acclaimed actor Lance Reddick passed away this week. He was well known on many, many, many things. Of course, recently John Wick, of course, but he also in his last 5 years, he was doing a bunch of voice acting too, which was awesome. He was on
a lot of TV, a lot of TV,
a lot of voice acting. He was on Destiny 2 on Xbox and PS5.
Yeah. I just heard about that recently, and then he was in American Horror Story a few times, and he was recently he starred in Netflix's poor attempt at a Resident Evil adaptation, and but he was great. He did what he could with a horrible script, but all that to say, yeah, Lance Reddick has been a big time presence in American television for the last almost 20 plus years, dating back again to the Wire. He was also I think he was in Oz as well.
He was on Oz.
Yep.
Yeah, he was on Oz. He was on Lost.
He was in Lost, which
he was on Fringe. He was in as far as films go, he was in White House Down. He was in John Wick. He was in Angel Has Fallen. He was on the cable show Bosch.
Oh yeah, he was in Bosch.
He did a voice on DuckTales, which I did not know.
I will say this about Lance Reddick. My first time is probably Oz. I don't remember his role in Oz, but I remember him more prominently from The Wire. Yeah. But then I remember mostly his stint on Eric Andre's show and Spartacus too.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
He also he was in one episode of It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, and it's a pretty funny episode, because that's one of the things that over the years, as just observing his career, I noticed about him is, and what people who work with him would say, is that even though he would play these sort of steely characters, he was like one of those people that had like a great sense of humor and was very, very, very funny and amiable and things like that. Not at all like the sternness of Daniels or Broyle from The Wire, or Broyles from Fringe, which is a good thing. You when you hear that about these actors, and certainly that was, from what I hear, that was true about him. In fact, he had just posted. He had posted a Facebook or Instagram message with his dog on Wednesday, because he basically explaining that he wouldn't make the John Wick 4 premiere. It was played at the premiere or something like that, because he couldn't make it, and then a couple of days later, he passed away.
Also, I want to give props to his voice work on Horizon Forbidden West and Horizon Zero Dawn and Horizon Forbidden West.
Oh wow, I did not know
and
that.
And he was in he's also in Vox Machina too.
Yeah, he's a prominent character in those games too.
He's he's dope. And then on the comedy end, my favorite was he was in the Gay Wedding Advice skit on Key and Peele. Which is my favorite line, where he was just like, are there going to be any gay hymns at this gay wedding? And they're like, what is a gay hymn? Just raining men.
That is funny. I mean, Lance Reddick, man, what can you say? He's been a big part of like I said, TV as a character actor, and just all around voice actor, recognizable. When you hear his voice, see him, he's like, who he is. So it was definitely he was still relatively young, in my opinion, 60 years old.
He's really young.
None of us know these figures personally, so we can't say what, whether he was physically healthy or not, but it was just a kind of a definitely a blow to see that name as someone that died this last week.
Well, his wife said it was from natural causes. So
the coroner's report is saying it's natural causes as well.
Crazy,
but it stings in a particular type of way, because I'm actually in the middle of, at D'Angelo's behest months ago, I'm in the middle of rewatching Fringe, so it stings in a particular type of way, because I'm seeing this dude's grill every day. I'm trying to work my way through 5 seasons of Fringe. So, it definitely stings a certain type of way.
And I literally watched the episode of Fringe where he accidentally takes some LSD. And when I tell you that character, and
that's a great episode.
It is hilarious. and Lance Reddick switches from, again, steely stern Broyles, the epitome of a military background FBI agent, to straight tripping balls, tripping his mind out. Like
100%.
It's great. It's great TV, and you can always find those moments from Lance Reddick when you watch his stuff.
I shall go revisit that episode to see if it's accurate for research purposes.
He's done Funny or Die videos. He doesn't take himself all that seriously, or didn't, I should say, take himself all that seriously. It would seem like, for all the, like we were saying before, for as steely as some of his characters are, and as hard boiled and menacing in some cases as his characters can be, the man clearly had a funny bone, and knew how to sell comedy. Like he clearly was not what he was typecast as. But it's a huge loss, man. It's so sad.
Salute to Lance Reddick.
Man. Salute
to Lance Reddick.
So we're gonna wrap with final words. Cam, I'm gonna start with you.
Yeah, man. Thank you. I want to start with the recently released Chris Rock special. Yeah.
Talk to him, Cam.
It had like a few. I don't know, man. Like Chris Rock peaked on his first two specials, and that was it. I'm not gonna lie with you. I'm not gonna sit here and say Chris Rock. Chris Rock at one point was one of the funniest men in comedy, but that moment has came and went like a fart in the wind. And maybe I've outgrew Chris Rock's comedy. And watching this most recent special told me a few things about myself and Chris Rock. Chris Rock is still doing the same approach that he did 20 years ago. And I think Chris Rock needs therapy because I think that Will Smith slap really affected him in ways that came out through this last special. I also think he has a thing against black women. That's a conversation for another day because there's a history of this type of Chris Rock banter against black women, especially.
That's a good point. I've noticed that too before.
Yeah. So, Chris Rock had a few moments that made me like go, chuckle, but he doesn't make me laugh out loud like, yo, that was hilarious. Bill Bellamy, Eddie Griffin, and a few others make me laugh out loud. There's the Dave Chappelle's where they made me kind of think about things and kind of like, oh yeah, and that's a different type of comedy. I may not be laughing, but I enjoy it. And then there's Chris Rock, where it sounds like he's like the black Eddie Kinnison. I'm like, would that translate well? That same type of style now, screaming, because he's like, yo, like his most funniest movie is about the rib he wanted to buy for $1, where I was like, oh, that's hilarious. But I have
But even that's old. Like
that's old.
That's like his material with the dude where he's like, how much for such and such? And he's like, it's $10. $10, good Lord, that's a lot of money.
Yeah.
That's it.
So like there was some dialogue on my Twitter timeline is Chris Rock's not funny. Now, I wouldn't say he's not funny. He was funny. He's just not as funny as he used to be back in the past. And I think
he's lost his step.
He lost a step. And his comedy special at best is mid. Even comedians who watched it will tell you it's mid. And we're not trying to discredit Chris Rock. It's just the reality of it. He just didn't translate well into this modern era, or I don't know, man. Chris Rock has always been kind of problematic for folks, and I think he's a certain type of comedic for certain type of people, Saxons, but that's just me, So again, my final word, Chris Rock has a new special. It's not all that great. You can wait to go see it. There's funnier people, but if you want to go down memory lane and see what Chris Rock used to be and sounded like, go by all means, go for it.
D'Angelo?
Final word. I'm just gonna say once again, rest in peace, Lance Reddick, because again, I think I don't normally say that much about celebrities when they celeb actors when they pass, but much like Josh, I'm rewatching Fringe, and I've seen a few episodes that, again, when I was literally, I think I may have been watching Fringe when I saw that alert on my phone, which I was like, oh, what? Lance Reddick dies? So once again, my final word is just another rest in peace to Lance Reddick.
Yeah, I would say mine. My final word is kind of the same. Also, too, every time a black, I'm gonna say black person that is known in either fame or some celebrity like under, I don't know, 75. I'm just like, man, like every time it's honestly what it is just another reminder of health for the rest of us. We're all black men. Yeah. We're all in our 40s, and we just making sure we checking in on their health. Making sure we go to our appointments. Make sure we check on each other as well. But like this whole like 60's too young, man. 260 is way too young.
Cam, we not too far from 60.
That's what I'm saying. Hey. That's exactly what I'm saying.
So when you see me post my videos like I'm lifting to fight Thanos, like there's a reason why I do this.
60 is too. I have friends that are 50. That's 10 years. And it's 60 is too young,
And we might be joking about like how like it's real, bro. Like that was way too young. Mm-hmm. Natural causes. What? And
like a black, and unfortunately, statistically, black men's our life expectancy is like 72 or something like that. I swear it goes down every time I check. But if that's the case, all of us are past middle age already. And so that's another aspect of a reminder, right? Like I thought about that too. I was like, I'm not saying we're not gonna get to 72, but I'm also like, man, we are now past the point of quote unquote what statistically middle age would be. So 60 is 60 is young. So my whole message is, be on your health tip. Drink the waters. Get you in the gym. Get your exercise in. Whatever you need to do, but just
because we don't have access to that stuff that the queen had that kept her for almost say she was just 90 something, but I think she's 150. They just
baby's blood
scratched the records. I think she's not whichever her father's king, whatever his name was.
She's Nosferatu, man. She's Nosferatu.
For reals. Josh, your final word?
Final word. So I'm super late, but Ted Lasso. Wow.
Welcome to the resistance, brother. Welcome to the resistance.
That show is one of the greatest shows ever made.
I hear it's funny. I hear it's real.
Stop. D'Angelo, you shall not watch this show. This show is not for you.
I know. That's what I heard. I heard it's not cynical. It's not. It's supposed to
entirely too happy
or something.
It's entirely too happy for your sensibilities.
Yeah. Well, okay. I will. But that's cool though, Josh. It is absolutely one of the best feel-good shows I have ever seen in my entire life. Probably the best. Not even one of them. Leaps and bounds, far and away, the best feel-good show I've ever seen in my entire life. Even more than Schitt's Creek? Or did you watch Schitt's Creek?
Schitt's Creek is really good. It's in the same vein, but this is more where Schitt's Creek has a more of a sarcasm arc to it. This is a lot more on the optimism and hopeful, warm and
yo, D
thinking about it makes
he just feel good and D don't go together, man.
Nah.
Don't do that.
Trust me, D'Angelo and I talk every day, and we are very plugged into what the other is watching. I even mentioned that I'm watching Ted Lasso to D because it's a waste of time. It's not for you, bro. I know this. It's not.
Wait a second. Hang on, because you guys describe this as positive and being a feel good. Don't make me have to be some kind of monster.
But it's not just society. It's not just that it's that. It's just so far down the lane in optimism. It really, like, it goes out of its way to be this happy-go-lucky, plucky, sort of hyper optimistic show.
Okay. So it's like this gimmick for that to be that way,
but it's not cloying.
But it's good.
The thing is, it's not cloying. It's not like you think it would be. It should be. As a matter of fact, I'll go so far as to say it should be cloying and just like so feel good that you just like, this is too much.
Look, man, puppies and positivity don't go well with D'Angelo, bro.
but it goes so far down the lane of optimism and happy. Just it carries it so far down the lane that it ends up being arguably one of the best shows I've ever seen.
Yeah,
because of that.
Job. Yeah, they do a good job. I would say, and just to backstory, it came out right at COVID. And so when everything was bleak and people were just kind of in that very down in the dumps type situation, it just landed at the correct time. That's and like that warm and fuzzy and optimism and hopeful and all that stuff hit such. And like I remember I had heard the same type of stuff and I was like, oh, let me just check this out. And by the end, I was like, yo, this is really good.
And I rewatched it with big old hug, didn't it?
Oh, 100%. I rewatched it with my mom. She was laughing. Absolutely. She was crying. She was into it. She was enjoying herself. And so, yeah.
It absolutely will tell tug on every emotion you have. You'll be angry at some characters. You'll cry at some character situations. You'll laugh until until you run out of breath and tears are flowing. It's just, it really, everything that it does to an extreme in the best possible way. And not to mention the soccer aspect. Like, I'm a huge soccer fan. Me and Cam are both huge soccer fans. And the soccer aspect absolutely works for an American made, what I think is an American made show.
Yeah.
Like, it really is, like, in every character, like, I was texting Cam, yesterday, I think it was, like, and I realized as I looked back, I was looking for something else, and I looked back at what I was saying to Cam, and I was like, this character is awesome. This other character is awesome. This other character is like, all the characters are great. I realized that I probably texted him like 4 times that different characters were brilliant in some way. But it's just really, I just cannot get enough of that show. Holy crap.
See, that's ending on a positive note. I like that. Warms and fuzzies. Yeah, and it just started its 3rd season, I think, last week. And so, and they, even in the 2nd season, I think the one good thing that they do balance about that, say from the positive end, is they give especially Ted Lasso, who's almost uberly positive, they give him a certain aspect of that can be perceived as a negative, and the way they deal with it is actually pretty good. And so they do a really good job of just really making sure that they don't have no cardboard characters, and it's good writing, solid arcs, and it's just fun, man. It's a really fun show.
Yeah, Ted is like hyper optimistic, and he's had some terrible things happen to him, and it's not just hyper optimism. Like, he's genuinely, it seems that he is just that way, but he comes across as like a real person who has had some terrible things happen to him, and he reacts to those things. And so not everything is all, super duper gushy, and he's just syrupy, sweet, and happy all the time, even through the bad thing. Like, his bad things are really bad, and he has some really bad reactions to them. But he snaps back to who he is once he's aired the thing, or expressed what the thing is, or had his reaction to the thing. The man has panic attacks, and related to some things that have happened, a divorce that he went through, his pops committed suicide, and he goes through it. Like, he really, in unpacking all of that, he goes through it. So it's not like he's just all syrupy and plucky all the time. The characterizations are bloody brilliant. I just hit the episode where Beard had his night out on the town after they lost the FA Cup. And that was just a wild, trippy episode.
For no reason, but also good. So if you haven't watched it, Ted Lasso is top-notch TV writing.
100% top tier.
It's really, really out there. But be prepared for some warm and fuzzies and a lot of hugs, a lot of feels, a lot of good speeches, a lot of good. We could do it, guys. Come on, we're down and out, like that kind of stuff.
But also, you'll feel something. You may shed a tear. You're gonna laugh really hard. You may shed a tear. You're gonna be really happy. You're gonna be really sad. Like, it takes you some places.
Yeah, definitely.
I think it'll take me right to the toilet. I've always heard good things about this show. Like, I can't even hate on it. I've heard that about the optimism, which is probably why I've avoided it up until now. I will admit that, but yeah, it's cool to hear that you've gotten into it, because like I said, I've heard so much about people saying like it's just like a big hug and super positive, feel good. And mainly during COVID, a lot of people flocked to it, and they were watching it for those reasons, mainly just to, again, feel good stuff.
Yeah, escape some of the craziness.
Yeah,
that's our show for today. Oh, go ahead, Josh. Sorry.
I was gonna say, it's also wild that it like the transporter, it's a fully fleshed out concept that started out as just this little thing that I'm trying to remember who.
It was a ESPN sketch.
Yes,
Ted Lasso. The whole sketch. It was a sketch of a D2 football coach getting a job at a Premier League. I forgot which one it was. It was actually a popular one, but it was like I think they did 3 5-minute little like mini episodes, and then they took that and turned it into a fleshed out show. And so,
and it is wild that they created all of this from just the again, like the Transporter movies. The Transporter movies started out as BMW films, but Clive Owen driving a car, looking mysterious, driving a BMW, looking mysterious, doing what looked like it could have been maybe possibly spy stuff that we don't know about, but couldn't identify. But it was great. They were great BMW commercials. So, and somebody had the idea, well, all right, Clive Owen's not going to be available, but this guy, what's his name? Thank you. Jason Statham apparently is available. We'll throw him in a BMW and we'll take that concept, and he'll just be an ex-military guy who goes around doing, equalizer level interventions for people if they have enough money, or because he feels like, a wrong needs to be righted. And 4 movies, however many movies there.
Yeah, I think there are 5 now, but yeah, you're right. It's kind of crazy.
Yeah, some craziness like that. But yeah, Ted Lasso, man. Holy crap.
Nice. Also, that's our show. Thank you for rocking with us. We will see you guys next week. And
peace. Diamond Dogs.